Hari Om. Disease and yoga. This topic is very old but still relevant. Divine souls and experts have had a lot to say on this. There have been books on this topic by eminent thinkers and yogis. But awareness of yoga and its capability to manage and remove distress and disease is still not relevant to the times that we live in, at least in the community that I live in. Yoga has been the most misunderstood subject that I have come across. I've spent a lot of time talking to people on financial options and futures since it was my interest during my MBA days and the years of professional life after that. I have had an interest in individual sports and in team sports as well. I like to read about almost anything under the sun, but the more I hear the noise around yoga, the more I wonder. What would you say if I were to tell you that a circle is in fact a helix? You know what a helix is? Just search on the Google. So what I was saying was, what would you say if I were to tell you that a circle is in fact a helix when seen from the side? Just the impact of adding a third dimension of movement changes everything, isn't it? That's the component of time. The first order derivative of distance is velocity. The first order derivative of velocity is acceleration. Again, the component of time makes things complex. And the same thing completely changes its appearance. Now, if I were to tell you that Wimbledon is a clay court tournament and that football is played on a racetrack, what would you feel? Yes, that is what I would feel if someone told me about the current paradigms in which yoga is understood and discussed. Yoga is psychology. Yoga is neuroscience. It is physiology. It is endocrinology. It is nervous system, all rolled into one. And just to make it interesting, our sages added a layer of quantum mechanics. Yoga is psycho-physio-neuroendocrinology, rolled in one. Then why isn't it so widely used in disease alleviation and disease management? There are some reasons. Number one, very few institutions have conserved the original thoughts and idea behind yogic texts and Indian darshans. They have dedicated to conserving it and nothing more. Let's call this set as alpha. Some exalted souls practice it by a time in yoga. So some exalted souls practice it at an individual level and are insulated from the world. Let's call them beta. And the third set is the current ecosystem that is making the teachings of yoga available to the world. But they are mostly lacking in their own individual spiritual progression. Let's call them gamma. Alpha and beta know, but are not in the business of promoting. Gamma is in the business of promoting, but doesn't know. I will give you two examples to indicate the level of misrepresentation in yoga. Meditation is not a practice. You cannot just close your eyes and meditate. Meditation is a state one reaches to. Meditation is not possible without relaxation. The biggest wellness apps in the US claims to make people practice meditation, and that too of the transcendental types. Another example. Yoga is not an exercise. It is not what you do in the gym in the yoga class. That, my friends, is stretching. The gamma have the following restrictions as well. First is the overarching paradigm of fear that is present in all of us. And second is the capability to empathize, but not to be compassionate. Fear is everywhere. It is in the mind of the doctors who are parts of the prescription-based ecosystem because they know that they cannot heal. They can merely suppress the issue at hand. It is the system that was designed initially to manage physical trauma, and that is why over the last 100 years, with the advent of antibiotics and vaccines, there has been such a fabulous improvement in our overall life expectancy. From 40 years now, then we are now at about 80 years of life expectancy. But the prescription-based ecosystem was not designed to promote health. It then metamorphosized into the only ecosystem currently available at scale. Fear is also in the mind of people because they believe that this is the only life they got, that they will get extinct when they die. Only if we could look back and see what has happened to the earth that we are all a part of. 5 times life has become extinct, and every time the regeneration has been more beautiful and more vibrant than the previous one. When the dinosaurs lived in this world, the topsoil used to be 30 feet deep, which is now barely a few centimeters deep. The incomparable and infinite capacity of that rich topsoil to produce nutrition resulted in creation of the size of the dinosaurs that we knew. But then that life died, and what came were flowers, flowery trees, deciduous trees, and a much more beautiful ecosystem. That life is finite is at best an imagination. I was reading somewhere that if the entire universe's mass, that of its planets and what is in them, and the interplanetary mass is converted into energy using Einstein's equation of E is equal to mc square, that entire energy will fill in 1 cubic centimeter of vacuum. 99.999% of our body is a vacant space, and in that space what we have is 1,000,000 times a second kind of vibration of light energy that is actually enclosed within the water crystals that are lined outside the edges of the protein walls in our cells. The water in our cells is not in the form that we see it in the tumbler on your table, in the glass on your table. It's, as I said, in a crystalline form mixed with salts. These water crystals hold the light energy that gets released from the bacteria in our body, which is the life source of whatever we are. The mitochondria is what it's called. That vibration is so dense that our eyes can't catch it, and you see it in the form of a human body. This is what we are. Not a lifeless mass of weight that weighs yourself on the scale in kgs and pounds. This is what people call soul. Some call it consciousness, but this vibration is there in us and is there in the environment around us. So we have to stop this paradigm of fear that grips us. Life is regenerative and life is universal. The second aspect is that of confusing compassion with empathy. When we see someone struggling or in distress of having an illness, empathy makes us descend from our energy state into that particular person's energy state, which is good. Only that we do not know how to come out of it. That Sankalp Shakti in us is not there. Compassion is dynamic. Compassion is when you see the orchestra playing, but you're not a part of it. It is then when you can really be of some help to people around you. Swamiji calls it Drashta Bhav. Some call it Karuna. But the essence is to be an observer. Have the strength to be an observer. When the journey towards health is not recommended on a prescription paper, when it is felt between two people who walk the same path together, when it is part of a community behavior, it is then that health is achieved. Yoga helps us achieve both: conquer fear and develop the capability to be an observer, yet be empathetic, be compassionate. Fear is managed and slowly conquered by developing a discipline of sadhana, our daily yogic sadhana, my friends. It might take decades or a lifetime, but the journey for sure will start. Compassion is developed through bhakti and karma yoga, both of which work at our anhat. One develops karuna, the other non-judgment. This is a message more to me than to you who are listening to it. For it is I who has to merge to emerge. It is I who has to loosen its convictions. Hari Om Tat Sat.